I'm a Canadian. My name's Greg. This is Trash Talk, where I usually go over 5 trash takes in 5 minutes. But today, we're going to need a garbage truck, especially here in Ontario, Canada, where they're trying to bring back mask mandates. We're also going to cover kids being in the hospital and a little bit of some trash takes on Remembrance Day. But I'm going to try to stay as calm as possible because some of this stuff is really, really upsetting. So let's just jump into it. From Theo Modakis, please enjoy my hashtag MaskUp Cartoon for Tuesday's Toronto Star. Let's read it, shall we? Mask up, Ontario. And if you won't do it for yourself, then do it for us kids. She's making me feel unfree. First of all, it's very interesting that this dropped on Monday, November 14th, the exact same day that Doug Ford is basically saying, urging people to mask up, but not necessarily saying that it's a mandate. It's very interesting that this political cartoon is released the exact same day. You know, it's almost like this cartoon is supporting the new policy or, messaging from Doug Ford. Isn't that interesting? But the theme we're going to see today is using children as a bargaining chip. Isn't that nice? So I kid you not, right as I'm scrolling Twitter, right next to this cartoon, I see this CTV news post. U.S. study finds huge increase in children going to the emergency room with suicidal thoughts. Isn't that nice? Of course, I made the tongue-in-cheek comment, probably because they saw grown-ups bringing back mask mandates. And I know that we're in Canada, and that's a study from the US, but still, I think the point still stands, okay? This is something that's not talked about, how depressed children become when they're forced to stay inside and forced to wear masks. But of course, no politicians, no journalists in this country seem to want to talk about that, right? Next, we have a clip from Dr. Kieran Moore, who is now telling parents of toddlers to wear a mask inside their own home if they have the sniffles. And I believe he said as young as 2 years old should be wearing a mask.
If I'm a mom to, let's say, a toddler, and I wake up with the sniffles, you're saying I should be masking at home?
I'm sorry, but you should. You should be doing good hand hygiene, cleaning surfaces, masking as best you can to decrease the risk to that child.
What a piece of garbage. Did he bring up any studies or peer-reviewed things to support that? I'm sure he has them, but still, it's besides the fact. Here's a tweet from the Ferryman's Toll, who brought up this clip from Kieran Moore over a year ago. He tweets, a year ago, Kieran Moore, we just needed masks until enough people got jabbed because the jabs totally would stop the spread, bro. They lie again and again, counting on people being too stupid to remember what they said before. Let's see what he said over a year ago.
The March date next year for masking potentially to be lifted.
By March, we hope we've maximized our immunization strategy in Ontario, that we have more Ontarians immunized to the point that this virus doesn't have a host in which it can reproduce, to the point that this virus doesn't have a host in which it can reproduce.
And so this is important. Back then, the carrot on the stick was, hey, get immunized. And then, we won't have the mask mandates anymore.
And then we will have to learn to live with this virus. We'll have our third dose strategies will be completed. Our immunization strategy for children from 5 to 11 will have been completed.
So they're pushing the immunization on children as well. And that's important because there seems to be a lot of extra children in the hospital, more than ever before seen. Not sure if that's related or not, but let's continue. So we're seeing, here's a tweet, a trash take from Tara Sloan. Good God, stop kvetching about masks and save some lives. Far less convenient to have sick babies who can't get an ICU bed than it is for us to put a thin piece of fabric over our faces when we go to the grocery store. This has over 1,000 likes, 1,700 likes. Wow. So this is without any science, without any clear connection. There's all these people with check marks in Canada coming out saying there's a strong connection between kids being sick and you not wearing a mask. Where's the connection? Where's the actual scientific connection between the two? We don't care about that. We're just going to scare the shit out of you and keep repeating this lie over and over again. And 2 other things to add. After 2 to 3 years of being stuck inside, socially distancing, living in a sterile environment, you are not going to develop a proper immune system. These poor children probably have very weak immune systems now. Once again, is anybody talking about that? Is any doctor or expert talking about that? And furthermore, Canada is facing a shortage of kids' pain medications and antibiotics, if I'm not mistaken. And all of these experts and scientists and everybody are saying, well, you need to wear a mask. You need to wear a mask? What about the shortage of medication for children? Why is that happening? Let's talk about that instead of blaming it on somebody for not wearing a mask. It's ridiculous. And here is a journalist from the Globe and Mail, a national reporter no less, Christy Kirkup says, imagine driving as fast as you could to the ER with the baby in the back seat and fearing she is struggling to breathe. You hear wailing that tells you breath is going in. You move fast to get to the door, but inside the hospital is overrun with children just like yours. Now imagine a month later, after your sick baby seemingly recovered from RSV, the bark is back. You're back to monitoring breathing and feeling helpless. You're teetering on another ER visit where help is in short supply. Imagine you were a journalist and you actually reported on facts and information. Imagine you were a journalist and you asked questions about why so many kids might be in the hospital. Imagine that. And then I want to shout outs to Ian Roden. He's a great guy on Twitter, PPC supporter. He says, are you an actual reporter? Any facts or data? Or just raw emotion? Kids get sick, hospitals are always overrun during cold and flu season, and hospitals that receive generous funding are mismanaged. Also, hire back the unjabbed. Absolutely right. I'm actually going to retweet that. So it's just more and more fear mongering. Hey, this is because people didn't wear masks. What sources? Trust me, bro. That's why the kids are in the hospital. This next one's from Colin DeMello. He is the Queen's Park Bureau Chief, Global News, Toronto. New Sick Kids Hospital is delaying surgeries to preserve critical care capacity amid a pediatric crisis in the province. One sick kids doc tells me he has never seen anything like this in his 18-year career. What has changed recently? Is there anything that's been different that we've been doing to children that has changed? And of course, I responded to this saying, ever since forced masking and injecting kids with synthetic mRNA, Sick Kids Hospital has never been busier. It was interesting. Sick Kids Hospital has never been busier since ads like this have come out.
Now that COVID-19 vaccines are authorized for children aged 6 months and up, you probably have questions. Information is available.
Information is available. I did a more in-depth video that you can check out on my TikTok. I don't always go in-depth with jabby jab stuff here on YouTube and Facebook for fill in the blank why. But I will show you a little bit of this information. You know, we're curious. Why are all these kids in the hospital? It's never been seen before. Let's look at the own information on the Government of Canada website. Okay, this is for children. So impacts on children and youth. Most children and youth who get COVID-19 have mild or no symptoms. They mention one rare but serious complication called multisystem inflammatory syndrome. Again, they don't have the statistics of how often this happens, but they do say the majority of children and adolescents in Canada who have had this condition have fully recovered with treatment. So even when kids are exposed to COVID-19, most of them recover from the worst of the worst kind of symptoms. Now on the same page, when you go to possible side effects, oh my goodness, there is 2 entire pages dedicated to possible side effects. Let's read one, shall we? Rare reactions that have been reported. As with all jabs, there's a very small chance that there will be a serious side effect. Okay, let's continue. mRNA jabs, myocarditis and pericarditis. And then look at this, what it says. Myocarditis and pericarditis seem to be occurring more often than expected in some populations. There's a very small chance, but it's also happening more often than expected in some populations. This is directly from the Government of Canada website on jabs and these injections. And if you look at this, there is a whole list of rare reactions. Myocarditis, pericarditis, Bell's palsy, facial paralysis, blood clots with low platelets, capillary leak syndrome, Guillain-Barré syndrome. And again, if you compare this to the impacts of the actual virus, it's mild or no symptoms. And even in the worst case scenario of a single side effect, multisystem inflammatory syndrome, the majority of children and adolescents in Canada who have this condition have fully recovered with treatment. And back when I checked this website in October, it said the jabs were shown to provide very good protection against infection in the 2 months after injection. Only 2 months? I was looking on the website just now. I couldn't find it. It looks like they've made the website much more complicated. I don't have the patience to look for it. But 2 months only with this injection? I would love to see some more statistics on this, considering we care so much about children and not wanting to fill up the sick kids' hospital with them. But all we're seeing are tweets like this. Hey, stop worrying about masks. Just put your masks on so kids don't have to go to the hospital, okay? Don't you care about us kids? Oh yeah, I just don't want to wear a mask. And it's like, can we please start asking the important questions here? While I was researching for this, I found this headline from 2008. Argentina investigates deaths of injected kids. Argentine authorities are exploring a possible link between the deaths of 14 only children and the experimental jab they were taking in a clinical trial run by GSK. Wow, so they are investigating it. They're looking into it. That's good to know. Considering sick kids' doctors is seeing something that they have never seen before, is that worth an investigation? Is that worth an investigation into these injectable products that were, if I'm not mistaken, were only approved under an emergency? And then in completely unrelated news, the poster boy for Argentina's jab campaign has died suddenly of bilateral pneumonia. Santino Godoy Blanco was rushed to hospital due to fever and vomiting before passing. His mom says he took off his mask and gave her little kisses because he couldn't talk anymore. Rest in peace, Santino. Hopefully the grown-ups start asking questions. This is brutal, man. Moving on to Remembrance Day, we got a tweet here from Jason. Many Canadians are sickened by Pierre Poilievre politicizing Remembrance Day to score cheap political points. Are you one of those many Canadians? And he's linking to a holiday in Cambodia because Trudeau was not in Canada for Remembrance Day. And I've seen comparisons in the past where Stephen Harper was not always in Canada for Remembrance Day. I don't think the Prime Minister needs to be in Canada for Remembrance Day. However, the difference is Harper, when he was overseas during Remembrance Day, he went to a ceremony. He paid his respects. He did a moment of silence. He did what he needed to do to pay respect to Canadian veterans. Did Trudeau do that when he was in Cambodia? Did he go out of his way to do that? Probably not. But this is an absolutely trash take. Don't politicize Remembrance Day. It's pretty obvious why people would politicize Remembrance Day, especially when we have veterans being completely disregarded and demoralized in this country by an entitled, ungrateful political class and news media institution, and especially after the past 3 years when our charter rights are being walked all over. Veterans fought and died for freedom. They didn't fight and die to wear masks and be compliant with whatever the government says. But I wanted to focus on Ed the Sock for a minute, who agreed with this tweet. Yes, don't politicize Remembrance Day. Yeah, okay, Ed the Sock, let's see what he has to say. Today, I am rocking the poppy for Remembrance Day 2022 in honor of those who serves and those who serve today to keep our country free so that whiners can block a city and harass citizens for 2 weeks while claiming they have no freedom. First of all, it was 3 weeks. Second of all, there's a lot of people claiming that we had no freedom. In fact, one of the people who wrote the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was complaining that we didn't have freedom. Brian Peckford was there with the protesters. That's something that people do not talk about nearly enough, that the writer, one of the authors of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, was there to protest along with the trucker convoy. And to call everyone who was there some misinformed whiner. Daniel Bulford was a former sniper and security detail for Justin Trudeau, who was there at the trucker convoy protest. He wouldn't know anything about freedom or for standing up for what's right. And if you look back to a year ago, I couldn't leave the country. I couldn't go to a gym. I couldn't go into a restaurant. Freedoms were obviously on the downtrend. You know what I mean? They're acting like it's a myth that our freedoms were being taken away. It's so disingenuous. And the thing is whiners, no, these are Canadians who are smart and have foresight. That's who was at this trucker convoy. People who have foresight of yeah, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good at all. And of course it connects to Remembrance Day because we are knowing our history. We are remembering what's happened in the past. And we are hey, we don't want it to get to that point. And that's the whole point that the trucker convoy protest was there. It's a bunch of smart Canadians with foresight. And this next trash take comes from CaptainCoby. I really hope this guy is fake because his takes are just absolute trash. It's kind of entertaining though. Everyone suffered during the global pandemic. Just some of us stepped up and did our part and others honked. What did stepping up accomplish exactly? This stepping up. You masked up, you jabbed up, you shut down all these small businesses. You complied with every single thing that the government told you to do. What happened? Hundreds of thousands of small businesses got shut down and will never open again from lockdowns. Youth suicides, drug overdoses have gone up. You stayed inside, you wore a mask, you socially distanced, you ostracized your family for not agreeing with you. Trust amongst Canadians is at an all-time low. Yeah, you really stepped up, right, to rip apart society. And how about passports? You did your part. You gave the Canadian government the right to track and control you, quarantine you with the ArriveCan app, take all your data away. Yeah, you really stepped up, bro. You really stepped up. You stepped up and said, hey, government, f*** with me anytime you want. Yeah, good job, bro. Good job. Thanks for stepping up and doing your part. There is no nobility in this level of compliance to rules that just don't make sense and a whole bunch of other stuff that just doesn't make sense. And on the other hand, what did the honking accomplish? Well, once the honking started, a bunch of provinces dropped their mask mandates. They started to repeal restrictions immediately. And now a lot of mask mandates and other jab mandates have gone away. There's still a lot that people have still have to suffer through and still have to deal with, that we still have to get rid of. But the honking actually did something. It actually did something. You're welcome. You're complying with everything that Justin Trudeau said has totally fucked our country, to be quite honest. And I know people might say, oh, you shouldn't be so mean. You shouldn't be so mean. I'm just telling it like it is, okay? Like, if these people want to feel uncomfortable that I'm kind of calling them out for being these like compliant little sheep, yeah, good. You should think about what you've done. You should think about your values and your priorities and what kind of country you want to live in. Because if you haven't noticed, people like this are being catered to way too much in their kind of insulated little echo chamber where everything is comfortable and everything's nice and I just need to listen to what Justin Trudeau and what Theresa Tam says. And that mentality of safety, that mentality of sheltering yourself from opinions that disagree with you, that's poison. That's poison. Because it kills critical thinking. Just look around in reality and there's so many things in this country that are getting worse and worse and worse. And it's probably because people like this don't want to question the government, don't want to question anything that's going on. Anyway, that's it. Way too much time on this guy. We have a tweet from Jamie Sale, who is a world champion, Olympic gold medalist, and freedom fighter. And she had this banger tweet. If you start complying again with masks and segregation papers, then you have already forgotten Remembrance Day. Those who fought and died for your freedom would be hanging their head in shame. They didn't fight a war for you to bend a knee to the government and be a slave. Well said, Jamie. Love that one. A lot of veterans agree with you. And by the way, I would love to know how many veterans actually disagreed with the trucker convoy. It's probably just these like Royal Canadian Legion types. I doubt any real true veteran even disagreed with the trucker convoy. It would be great to get a poll on that. Anyway, moving on, we have this terrible, absolute trash take, of course, from Dean Blundell, our number one trash man. We love Dean Blundell and his trash takes like a 5-year-old. I don't even know where this tweet's coming from, to be honest, but it's so entertaining. Any Canadian veterans want to weigh in on Jamie Sale mocking your lives, careers, sacrifice for a QAnon meme by this trash bag? I'm sorry, did Dean Blundell just call a Canadian Olympic gold medalist a trash bag? Are you okay, Dean? Are you okay? First of all, how is this mocking the lives, careers, and sacrifice of veterans? It's a Remembrance Day tweet, bro, where she's saying, hey, people fought and died for freedom, and we should stand up for freedom. How is this mocking the life, career, or sacrifice of a Canadian veteran? What are you talking about? And then calling it a QAnon meme? What are you talking about? And that's the thing with people like this. They can't even like have a civil conversation about anything. They just have to say, QAnon, they're mocking veterans. Like I don't even understand where this is coming from. I don't understand who could even agree with this take at all. I simply replied, where's the QAnon meme? The Liberal government was segregating society. You needed a vax pass to leave the country, attend school, or even have a grand slam inside a Denny's, bro. Unbelievable. We're going to see how many times Dean Blundell gets featured in this trash talk series. It's probably going to be a lot. Here's a couple more bonus trash for you. This is CTV News. I love this. AI tool reveals what cities would look like in 2100 if climate goals not met. So in other words, you took an AI image generator, got this image and said, "Hey guys, let's turn this into a headline. Let's turn this into news." To give you an idea, I put the words phantom honking into an AI image generator and this is what came up. This is not news. This is not news at all. And the funny thing, the way this AI works is it just looks at a whole bunch of photos that have to do with climate change and then generates something based on that. So it's almost like an orgy of propaganda if you think about it. Like the AI took all the different propaganda images of climate change and it said, "Wow, look how spooky this image is." And again, this isn't news. I don't understand how this could be passed off as news. And what's very alarming is if you actually go to the article, it says climate and environment. Like it's actually put in the climate and environment section. If anything, that should be in like the technology AI section. But much like this cartoon from the beginning, it's almost like to make their point, they have to base everything off of a caricature. They have to base everything off of like a character assassination, calling people QAnon, or using computer generated images to like prove their point. Again, where are the actual facts and statistics that have actually been peer reviewed and challenged by scientific scrutiny? And then this last one again from CTV News is just such a joke. I can't believe it's real. Sean Penn loans Oscar to I can't even read it. Sean Penn loans Oscar to Zelensky until Ukraine wins war. What is going on? What does this mean? Is this like a humiliation ritual where it's like, yeah, like you're clearly acting, bro. Like here's the Oscar. Or is it like what does a normie think of this? If somebody who has a Ukraine flag in their bio, like Sean Penn's thinking like, they're like, yeah, like Sean Penn is offering his acting award and that's going to help. Like how is this anything other than Sean Penn wanting to get attention? It is so perplexing and weird. And once again, not news unless the news is about how Sean Penn is an idiot. Can you believe that people think all this Ukraine Zelensky stuff is just theater? Anyway, thanks for putting up with that garbage truck on episode 2 of Trash Takes. Like, share, and subscribe if you're new here. And we're